Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Tuesday, May 13th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast. Stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
A deadly scene in Falmouth Saturday night. Just after 11 p.m., crews responded to a two-vehicle collision on Highway 101. Investigators believe a blue Honda Civic was traveling in the wrong direction when it hit a Nissan Sentra in the eastbound lane.
That portion of the highway is divided by a cable divider or barrier, and that's when the collision occurred with the Nissan.
5 people were killed and 1 other remains in critical condition. The victims' ages were between 29 and 50 years old. CTV News has learned RCMP were looking for a Honda Civic earlier that night around 7 p.m. They suspected the driver was impaired.
Investigators know that it was the same vehicle. And in these types of collisions, toxicology reports will be requested of the driver, and the medical examiner service certainly is engaged in this investigation.
Meanwhile, the incident has sent shockwaves throughout the tight-knit community.
Yeah, so many people lose their lives in a needless accident. It's tragic. Our hearts are with the families today.
In a community, a small community, lost life like that, it's terrible. It's just plain terrible.
And at this point, investigators are hoping the public will help them establish where the Honda Civic was that night prior to the collision, trusting those details will help piece together how this happened. Todd.
CTV's Vanessa Wright leading us off in Windsor, Nova Scotia.
We are providing certainty, stability, and economic relief.
Relief that will come in the form of frozen industrial carbon pricing. Effective immediately, the cost of industrial carbon emissions will stay at $95 a ton, instead of increasing up to $110 in 2026 and up again to $170 by 2030.
That would be devastating to Alberta's economy. This is yet another example of Ottawa overstepping into our provincial jurisdiction with reckless policies that damage our industry.
I don't think what has been said today will be enough to quell the uncertainty.
This economist says that's because it's uncertainty from separation rhetoric, not carbon taxes, that's hurting investment.
As long as that uncertainty exists, investors will kind of put a certain risk premium to their investment in the province.
As far as the separation is concerned, this is a very dangerous talk. It is a very, it will hurt our economy. It will discourage investment into our province.
Edmonton's mayor is echoing concerns raised by Alberta's NDP, who say businesses fear the instability ahead.
I've even spoken to construction businesses that are saying that they're pressing pause until things cool off.
The president of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce questions if separation guarantees pipelines or foreign investment.
It will have the exact opposite impact, actually. It'll chill investment. It'll distract from the conversation we really need to be having.
Smith says those questions are for people pushing independence.
That would be a question for any of the groups that are leading that, because we aren't. We're leading the effort to have a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada.
Shailan Skalski, CTV News, Edmonton.
Premier Danielle Smith's UCP caucus appears to be showing signs of weakness. Recently, UCP MLA Peter Guthrie was kicked out of the party for speaking out about handling of the AHS procurement scandal. MLA Scott St. Clair was also booted for coming out against the budget. Party operatives have also quit and separation talk has ramped up.
We intend to continue to support their founding documents, which that we are supporting constitutional sovereignty within a united Canada.
The Premier is downplaying fracture in the party. However, this political scientist says unity doesn't seem so clear.
2 years into the government's mandate, and it's a very interesting and less certain time than we might imagine.
Now, the Recall for Change movement group is looking to force a recall election in a handful of constituencies.
The UCP government is misleading us in so many ways.
The group will look to use the Recall Act, which under recent amendments would require signatures of 60% of the total number of electorals who voted in 2023 and a sufficient reason for removal. It is looking at forcing both Calgary Bow and Calgary Northwest, which were narrowly won by the UCP. In Calgary Bow, led by Minister of Education Demetrius Nicolaitis, they aren't happy with him.
Public dollars going towards building private schools, as well as the lowest funding for public education in the country.
With 2 former UCP MLAs now sitting as independents, along with 2 resignations and a 3rd vacancy by the Speaker to come, by-elections will need to be held.
It's not so onerous as to imagine that it would not be possible, certainly if there's enough people in those ridings who are very upset with those MLAs.
With all the recent changes in the legislature, of the 87 seats, the UCP occupy 46, while the NDP hold 36. Tyler Barrows, CTV News, Calgary.
For Ryan Hanfield and Alexandra Peters, this is the first time they've been inside their Lachine apartment this year.
We came here on New Year's Eve because we really just wanted to leave it in the past. So we came for one last time. We said okay, 2025, we're moving forward.
But the young couple's nightmare continues. In July 2023, a massive rainstorm caused the sewer system to overflow. A river of water rushed from the street into the building's parking lot, broke through the garage doors, and flooded all 12 basement units.
The pressure was so strong that it structurally broke the walls, the door, and everything, all before it rushed through into our unit.
5 feet of water filled the apartment, and Hanfield says he only had a few moments to collect important personal items before he had to escape with their dog.
It's the things that you have for your whole life that you're attached to, and they're just irreplaceable.
For the next 13 months, the couple lived with Hanfield's parents. Then, on the day the repairs were completed, another once-in-a-century flood.
I got the text at 2 p.m. that day that they were done, and then 7 p.m. it was flooded.
They've now been out of their home for nearly 2 years and are still paying close to $2,000 a month in mortgage, condo fees, taxes, and insurance.
Unfortunately for me, it's the 3rd time in 5 years that this happened.
Stéphane Groux has owned his basement unit since 2012. He says there was a 3rd flood in 2019. Groux tried to sell his apartment last summer, but couldn't find a buyer.
The water goes all the way up to a certain level where there are some electrical equipment there, so it's very dangerous for electrocution. And the firefighter told us it was almost a miracle that nobody died on.
The insurance company is refusing to pay for repairs until the building is protected from future floods. The solution the building syndicate has come up with is a wall with a watertight gate at street level that would prevent the parking lot from filling up.
The total project is estimated at $800,000.
Residents here say the city should take ownership of the problem. The building sits at a low point in Lachine, and a 2012 report found the sewer system does not have enough capacity to handle all the development in the area.
There was a lot of green area here in 2012. It's all been paved. Yeah.
Last month, the condo syndicate asked the Superior Court to authorize a class action lawsuit against the city. Lachine Borough Mayor Maya Vodanovich, who is also responsible for Montreal's water system, says the building would not have received permits under current regulations.
Now we have a map of all the low points throughout the island, and we systematically look at the map before we give out permits.
She would not comment on the specifics of the court case, but said the city is not responsible for damage caused by historic floods.
No one expected that we would be getting, rains that are 1 in 100 years, 1 in 1,000 years, every year now.
Vodanovich says the city will issue permits for the new waterproof gate next month. In the meantime, residents here remain in limbo, with their homes and financial futures uncertain. Matt Gilmore, CTV News.
Ontario hospitals are under pressure, forced to spend billions to pay for private agencies, a new study finds.
The Ontario government's funding and policy decisions are responsible for a province-wide hospital funding crisis that has triggered a serious workforce crisis.
The study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives found that Ontario hospitals spent $9.2 billion on nurses and other staff from for-profit agencies between the 2013-14 year and 2022-23.
The provincial government continues to encourage for-profit involvement that is destabilizing Ontario's health system.
According to the study, during that decade, public hospital spending on staff increased by 6%, outpaced by spending on private agencies, which increased by 98%.
Why does this government continue to sell out Ontarians to private companies that just gouge our healthcare system?
The report was debated at question period.
Staffing agencies are a tool used primarily in rural and northern hospitals to avoid service disruptions. In fact, it is a tool that they have been using for decades.
The research shows while the number of hours worked by agency staff in Ontario hospitals accounted for just 0.4% of all frontline workers' hours in 2022-23, 6% of the hospital's labor costs went towards private staff.
Under the Ford government, we pay more and get less for health care.
Creating a reliance on them, quite frankly, and millions of dollars of debt for hospitals.
A spokesperson for the Minister of Health says in part, since 2018, our government has registered a 100,000 record number of new nurses, and we have another 30,000 nurses currently studying at one of Ontario's colleges or universities.
Ontario has become one of the most under-capacity hospital systems in the industrialized world.
The study examined financial statements from 134 Ontario hospital corporations and data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information. The study listed several recommendations, including banning private agencies, addressing the staffing shortage, and boosting the hospital-based funds to the tune of $2 billion. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Allison.
Every spring, city crews begin repainting markings on roadways, but some residents say they're noticing more faded lines.
I've noticed it quite a lot, actually, especially driving. It's a big issue, especially in the glebe, in the neighborhood, I notice it quite a bit.
It's not just an issue for drivers. Hillary Aubrey and Lucas Olson-Wilford say they're always extra cautious while walking through the glebe.
Some of the controlled and uncontrolled pedestrian crosswalks are quite faded, and it can be quite dangerous as a pedestrian trying to get traffic to stop for you.
Councillor Tim Tierney is also raising safety concerns.
Where does the car park?
He says new requirements introduced by the federal government in 2023 mandating certain types of paint for environmental reasons means the markings are disappearing more quickly.
At intersections, you're seeing no stop bars, no pedestrian crossings anymore. The control systems on your cars are unable to see those lines anymore.
For traffic markings, when you dilute a coating and paint in terms of the pigments you're using, then you also reduce the functionality of the coating. And that's what's happening with paint markings.
Tierney says the paint is also not as reflective, can only be used in certain temperatures, and doesn't stick as well, meaning crews have to go out more frequently.
You take into account that now you're actually having vehicles out on the road creating more GHG emissions 2 to 3 times a year versus it could be once every few years. That's a big, big difference.
For Olson-Wilford, the warmer weather means he's out walking more and hopes the issue can be fixed.
More high visibility paint, some road markers instructing drivers where they're supposed to stop at stop lines, as well as better paint in general.
The city did purchase a new MMA paint truck in 2021, with the paint supposed to be more durable and reduce the workload of annual maintenance, but it can only be used from June to September. In the meantime, Tierney says he's been in talks with the company 3M to explore safer and more durable alternatives, saying either find a solution or go back to what works. Katie.
CTV's Josh Morano reporting live for us tonight. Thank you.
A photo of a London mother and her child resonates with them 16 years after her murder.
That picture with her and I has been hanging in my room for the past 16 years since she died. So it's something that I look at every day.
The photo of Lisa Leckie is now part of a billboard circulating through several displays in London. J.C. Leckie hopes it will spark awareness and new clues into the homicide of their mother in March of 2009. Lisa Leckie, who was also known as Lisa Johnson, was found dead inside a third-floor unit at this Southdale Road East apartment building. She had been asphyxiated. No arrests were made, and the case went quiet until 2019, when police revealed publicly that the killer had left a note at the scene written with a vintage typewriter. It was a direct appeal for help.
This event is unforgettable.
The same day as the police news conference, an 18-year-old JC told CTV News London he believed new clues would come forward.
We have to believe that someone is out there with info.
6 years on, JC is still waiting and holding on to what they believed might have happened.
I think almost certainly that she let whoever it was in. So the only other explanations are they scaled the balcony or they picked a lock, and neither I see as very likely at all.
Now living in Hamilton, JC returned to London on Monday to watch all 5 electronic posters go online. Several of the billboards were donated by Target Outdoor, while the others were given to JC at a reduced rate. London police confirm that a possible cash reward is in the discussion phase. Meanwhile, no new clues are expected to be released in the short term.
The longer that this goes on, the less likely it is that my family is going to have closure, and time is running out.
In London, Sean Irvin, CTV News.
May 1st, Dallas Brody courted controversy once again.
The greatest threats to our unity: political interference by the Chinese Communist Party, the fragmentation of BC by over 200 bands, each asserting its own sovereignty.
The Premier responded immediately.
This member's incoherent and consistently racist posturing in this House against Indigenous and First Nations that do in fact have rights and sovereignty in this province.
The Penticton Indian Band wrote a letter to Brody and her fellow independents denouncing the divisive rhetoric and what it called explicit racism.
Absolutely not either of those things. I would say that we want to be undivisive and get away from policies that are rooted in racial differences.
I think we fight every day to make sure that everybody in this province has equal opportunity. And the last thing we want to do is divide people based on race or anything like that.
Brody and Tara Armstrong have now responded with a public letter accusing First Nations leaders of deepening racial conflict.
It doesn't feature any facts or new perspectives or information. It just continues the racialized, discriminatory attack on Indigenous peoples.
The Union of BC Indian Chiefs points out every MLA voted in favor of adopting the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People in 2019, with the public increasingly understanding and supportive of residential school survivors. They view the independents' comments as a step backwards.
It's so counterproductive, it's so destructive, it's so divisive.
Brody and Armstrong don't see it that way.
What it really boils down to is just making sure, again, that everybody has equal rights in the province.
The key is to bring people together, all of us working together as a team, not saying this group, this group, this group, everybody sort of fighting against one another.
Brody started the war of words in the legislature, and while she's drawing attention, it does nothing to change Indigenous rights. Penny Dufflaw, CTV News, Vancouver.
The soaring temperatures haven't stopped Miles Taylor from enjoying a skate at the Forks.
I feel like when it's super, super hot, it gives you an incentive to come out and try and push yourself to come and endure the heat.
But he still makes sure to keep himself hydrated.
Coconut water and just keeping electrolytes in your system.
This is Winnipeg, along with parts of southeastern Manitoba, are under a heat warning.
It's been a pretty warm run and a little bit more of it to go.
Environment and Climate Change Canada scientist Christy Kleimenhaga says it's early in the season to see temperatures spike to the mid-30s, which can make the heat even more dangerous.
Because we aren't used to them, the first heat event, the first few heat events can be shocking and can really be dangerous.
That's why the city of Winnipeg has set up 4 water tanks like this one around the downtown area and has opened its libraries and leisure centers for folks to escape the heat.
There's definitely going to be an uptick in calls for heat-related illnesses such as heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
Patrick McInnes with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service says Winnipeggers need to be on the lookout for the symptoms of heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
Dizziness, nausea, headache, that kind of thing. Get some water, call 911, get to a cool place.
He urges Winnipeggers to drink lots of water, at least 5 or 6 glasses a day, and check in on elderly or vulnerable family members to make sure they're doing all right. For Winnipeggers like Erin Knight, she's welcoming this early heat.
It's very surprising for this time of year, but I like this kind of weather, so I'm pretty happy. It's nice to bike to and from work.
Danton Unger, CTV News, Winnipeg.
An occasional teacher for the Waterloo Region District School Board is in hot water over allegations of inappropriate conduct. The teacher faces a disciplinary hearing from the Ontario College of Teachers. The alleged inappropriate touching and comments involving 11 female students took place in 2 separate time periods. The 2018-19 academic year at a school in Kitchener, and again during 2022 and 2023 at a Cambridge public school.
There is more discussion about sexuality and sexual boundaries and sexual abuse, and so that does empower people to come forward when they need to.
Heidi New is the director of Green Valley Counseling Services, which is not involved with the hearing. She says while her clinic has not seen an increase in clients concerned with these types of issues, education about what is or isn't acceptable certainly has helped people come forward. But feelings of being reprimanded can go through victims' minds.
The power dynamic is a real thing, but the child or the teen is never at fault. They are never to blame, and telling someone will increase your safety, not decrease your safety.
During the teacher's time at a Kitchener school, he is accused of resting his head or chin on some students' heads, rubbing or touching their backs and shoulders, or referring to them as sweetie, sweetheart, or honey. At the Cambridge school, the teacher allegedly grabbed or touched students' waists, hips, or shoulders, and is accused of calling one student pretty.
When kids don't feel safe, they can't learn. Their brain is not in a place where it can store information, process information, because they're in a state of alert and a state where they're not feeling safe.
With this particular investigation, the names of the schools and grades of the female students have been withheld to protect their identity. The Ontario College of Teachers confirmed the teacher has agreed to not accept any employment while this complaint is ongoing. And in a statement, the Waterloo Region District School Board confirmed the teacher is no longer employed by the board, adding in part, "We have followed our established protocols in every instance to ensure the safety and well-being of our students." Even so, students may wish to look for help outside of schools, and mental health experts want to highlight there are options available.
They could develop anxiety, depression, anger, problems with anger, difficulties trusting. It can impact their sense of self long-term. If you just think about who the safe adults are in your circle, there's usually always a safe person that you can tell.
And a date for the discipline committee hearing still needs to be set. Any student or family who may need help in a situation like this can find a list of mental health resources on our website, ctvnewskitchener.ca. Tony.
Okay, an important resource. Spencer Turcott, thank you very much for that update. Appreciate it.
The ice storm long gone, but its impact long-lasting in Aurelia.
The city of Aurelia has endured devastation that can be compared to hurricane levels.
Cleanup costs to the tune of nearly $5.4 million, but the bulk of that figure adding up after the city's state of emergency was declared over. More than $4.5 million spent in brush and tree clearing over the last month, with contracts running to June 12th. And staff suggesting the strain on the city's resources and budgets will last for the next several months and years to come.
We've tried to keep the budgetary increases to the 2-3% range. We've been successful, but this is a bunch of money. That's probably 3% of the budget right there.
The city will try to recoup at least $4.7 million of that money through the province, allotted funding through Ontario's Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Program.
There are some of our expenses that will not be eligible: stumping, replanting, and we'll work with the ministry through that.
Tentatively, we're looking at probably a $1.5 million cost to the city, and we'll bear that ourselves.
Staff's report only representing imminent cleanup of trees and brushwork, streetlight and traffic light repair, with additional expenses tracked separately, such as with fuel, landfill dumping, or associated relief center costs. A future financial report will detail the total cost of ice storm recovery. That's also when city staff will ask council for their approval to apply for provincial funding for disaster relief. That report is expected to be brought back in June. Christian Davino, CTV News, Aurelia.